Before the weekend, having dropped off my car for maintenance, I decided to forego returning to the office and instead caught a ride home with the service technician. He promised to bring my car back later that day. The warm, late spring afternoon made it clear there was yard work waiting for me at home, so that sealed my decision. At our place, we've got a large backyard, and I was out near the back property line raking leaves when I noticed my brother's red Corvette pulling into our driveway. I thought to myself, great, the only reason he shows up here is to borrow something, and he hardly ever remembers to return it. As I approached the driveway, I heard my son Sam call out, "Hey, Dad, what brings you to the land of wimps?" Wait, why did Sam just call my brother Dad? And what's this about the land of wimps? My brother responded, "I'm returning Uncle Joe's circular saw. I accidentally cut the electrical cord, so he needs to get it fixed before I can finish my project at home. Is Clueless Joe around?" Clueless Joe? That's my name, and I don't exactly see myself as clueless. Or maybe I am? Perhaps I should just stay outside the garage and listen in on this strange conversation. Of course, I turned on my cell phone to record what was being said. Sam continued, "Clueless's car isn't here. He rarely gets home before 5, and I try to avoid spending much time with him anyway. So no, I don't think he's home. Hey, now that school's out, when can I come spend time at your place? It's way more fun than being around here." "I'd love to have you over," my brother replied, "but your mom wants to cherish every moment with you. You're her only child, and as you get older, she'll miss you. Cut her some slack. She's supposed to spend some time with me next Thursday, so I'll talk to her about you staying with me for a week or two this summer." It was unsettling to hear my son question, "Why doesn't Mom leave Clueless and live with you?" I wasn't aware that she often visited his house in the afternoons. Oh no. Pieces of the puzzle were fitting together in a way that troubled me deeply. Could it be that I've been completely unaware? I felt overwhelmed by the thoughts of what might really be going on. Eric boasted, "Ever since I got her pregnant with you, I've been asking her that every month. She tells me, 'You're great in bed, but you wouldn't make a good husband.' I have a husband whom I truly love and cherish. Every moment with him makes me feel like the luckiest woman alive. I love him, and I definitely don't love you." I was devastated, but then I thought of a possible solution: a DNA test. Years ago, Carol, Sam, and I all took the 23andMe DNA test. Could it have been tampered with? What if Carol discarded my test and used Eric's saliva in a tube labeled with my name? It would have hidden Sam's true parentage, denying me the right to know I wasn't the father of a boy I deeply loved. When the hope of redemption faded, I had to face the reality. My name is Joe Tyndall, 43 years old. I haven't gained much weight since college, still around 175 pounds. I'm slim, not an athlete, but excelled in distance running in high school. My running is sporadic now due to family and work, but I manage a few miles weekly and participate in charity runs. I am the CFO and COO of Tyndall's Machine Company in my hometown, a business started by my great-grandfather as a blacksmith. We now specialize in precision parts for aerospace and metal replacement industries. My father Edward is president, and my brother Eric is the chief marketing officer. Eric, my younger brother, is physically opposite to me. He's 6'3", 5 inches taller, and over 50 pounds heavier. A typical jock, he was a popular football running back in high school and got a college scholarship for it. Unlike me, he didn't have to work or take out loans and graduated mainly because his instructors kept passing him to maintain his football eligibility. Eric's degree in physical education wasn't useful, so he started as a junior mechanic at Tyndall. He wasn't great at precision work, but used his name recognition to bring in customers and keep them happy, even though he couldn't discuss technical details. Despite this, he was beneficial to the company. Like any multi-generational company, we had our disagreements. Eric wanted a commission on new sales, which isn't uncommon. Since he already had a good salary, I negotiated to keep all income from patents I developed. Dad quickly agreed to Eric's request, but I had to fight hard for my share. I first noticed my wife Carol at a 5K charity run. She had a degree in secondary education and worked as an English teacher. A year after we met, we got married. After 2 years of marriage, we decided to start a family. Despite many attempts, Carol didn't get pregnant. We tried different diets, positions, and tracked her ovulation. Neither of us wanted fertility tests yet. We went back to making love for the joy of it. And a few months later, Carol missed her period. Carol's pregnancy had challenges. She was bedridden for the last 2 months. The delivery was complex, and we almost lost both Carol and our newborn son. Sam was delivered by cesarean section due to his size. The doctor advised against another pregnancy due to serious risks, so we agreed to the surgery he recommended for Carol. Knowing Sam would be our only child made him even more precious to us. Sam was a lively boy, always full of energy. We enjoyed roughhousing and playing various sports together, although Carol didn't always approve. His grades were slightly above average. After his 15th birthday, things changed. Our long talks while playing ball stopped as he spent more time on his phone or Game Boy. He became rude and dismissive, thinking my profession as an accountant wasn't manly, especially now that he was taller and more muscular. Carol excelled as a wife and had become the principal of McKinley School, which catered to students with academic and social challenges. The stress from her job sometimes led to conflicts at home, but she remained loving and sweet in our intimate moments. Our bed life was fulfilling and frequent. I was shocked when my brother told Sam he was his father and had been intimate with Carol for over 17 years. It seemed impossible, but I noticed Sam's resemblance to Eric and Edward, unlike me. It left me questioning everything. That evening, I watched Carol closely for any signs of an affair. Dinner was lively, and Sam left to hang out with friends. As Carol and I cleaned the kitchen, she playfully urged me to finish quickly, wearing only a lace apron. We then headed to bed, where I had the best closeness. The next morning, Saturday, we were supposed to have lunch at my parents' house to celebrate Edward's 70th birthday. Carol didn't want to ride in my Volvo, and Sam preferred to go alone so he could leave early. So we went in Carol's Lexus, as she preferred. As we walked through the front door, my mother Sally greeted us with hugs in a particular order. First Carol, then Sam, and finally me. Edward received the same greeting sequence. I was keenly observing the interaction between Eric and Carol next. Eric warmly hugged Sam and then extended his arms for Carol. His hug was enthusiastic, but Carol's response seemed lifeless. In fact, I detected what looked like boredom and frustration on her face as he embraced her. This wasn't the reaction I expected from longtime lovers who had been together intimately for 17 years. As for me, Eric greeted me with a handshake and a chest bump. My intention was to subtly investigate any potential affair or parental doubts, not to pry, but to approach it like a curious investigator akin to Inspector Clouseau from The Pink Panther. I wanted to stir things up and see if any secrets surfaced. During a quiet moment in the conversation, I casually threw out my first inquiry. "Eric, I need to talk to our CPA on Thursday afternoon. Will you be around the office to cover for me?" I knew Eric had no understanding of accounting procedures and wouldn't be much help if anyone called looking for me. "No, Joe, I'll be out of the office too. Got a big project going on," Eric replied confidently. Carol blew a couple of bubbles in her iced tea through her nose, a sign I recognized that I might be getting closer to uncovering something. "So, big guy, is this project going to leave you sweaty and exhausted?" I prodded. "Nah, I've worked with this person plenty of times before, and I always come out on top," Eric chuckled. Carol's glare at him was more intense than any of our plasma cutters. I could see her face draining of color. There was complete silence. No clinking of forks, no ice clinking in tea glasses. The atmosphere in Mom's dining room was quieter than midnight in a graveyard. Everyone's eyes were darting between the five of us. That alone suggested they all knew about the affair. I swear I could almost hear the tension seeping through their pores. This was exactly what I wanted. To play the fool, clueless Joe to them all, while underneath I understood exactly what was going on. Dad broke the tension by saying, "Well, you guys should check your schedules and figure out who's doing what." He continued, "I'm glad you boys could make it today for my birthday. My grandfather bought this 160-acre piece of land when it was miles from town. He'd be proud that it's still in the family and our business is thriving under Eric and Joe. Given my age and confidence in you boys, I'm stepping down as president of Tyndall. Eric will take over as the new president. There will be a change in the salary structure. Joe's new salary will always be 75% of Eric's. I really want Joe to stay with the company and be rewarded for his hard work. With Joe's income from patents, both of you boys will have about the same earnings." Carol squeezed my arm and gave me a reassuring smile. "So I report directly to Eric now? Eric, who couldn't tell a CNC machine from a popcorn popper, is running the company. This sounds like a disaster waiting to happen." "Listen, little brother," Eric interjected. "I've always been the take-charge guy while you've been counting small beans. It takes an alpha male like me, not a wimp like you, to be the boss. Get over it, Joe. Once again, I win. You lose. That's enough, boys. Eric, you won't be calling the shots here. I'm still the chairman of the board and outrank you. I own all the stock. You'll run the business the way I tell you to. This company's been in our family for over 100 years, and I won't let it go downhill on my watch. We're Tyndalls, and the important family legacy rests in our hands, just like those men on the wall, so simmer down. Dad gestured towards the pictures on the living room wall depicting 3 generations of Tyndall men. Speaking of which, Dad, which picture on the wall is your grandfather? My grandfather is on the left side of the pictures. My father's next to him, and I'm on the far end. I would have thought you knew that. I was just confirming because I have a question. Looking at those 3 pictures, it seems I don't resemble any Tyndall, living or dead. Different body type, hair color, facial features. Eric and Sam look like Tyndalls, but not me. I don't get it. My mother's shoulders slumped. Her face turned ashen, matching the redness creeping into Dad's. Once again, silence settled as everyone's eyes shifted between my parents and Eric. I found the best way to get people to talk is to drop a bombshell and then let them handle it delicately, without stirring up too much trouble. Joe, you might as well finally hear the family secret. Your mother and I planned to get married, but your mother got drunk at her bachelorette party and got pregnant. We were also intimate, so she thought she was pregnant by me. She had no way of knowing. We got married before she even knew she was pregnant. We were both surprised but happy because I thought I was the father. You were a weak and small baby. We thought it was due to your mother's pregnancy issues. You were frail and we almost lost you when you had the mumps. It was touch and go for several weeks. Joe, you were about 10 years old when we realized you weren't biologically mine. Sally had concealed that she had been with someone else before we married. She thought you resembled this other man. When DNA tests became available, we confirmed you're not my biological son, but Eric is. Well, that explained why I was treated differently compared to Eric. This revelation wasn't what I expected. I was probing about Sam's father and got hit with this bombshell. It flipped my world upside down. There wasn't much I could do about it now, but it left me with more questions. Mom finally spoke up, saying, "That doesn't mean we don't love you as much as Eric. We raised you as our son, and we both still see you that way." It was comforting to hear that from her, but what did this have to do with what I overheard Sam and Eric discussing? "Okay, Dad, that explains my physique, but why doesn't Sam have my body type? Instead, he's more like you and Eric." Here's another bomb for them. "Joe, you and Carol struggled so much to conceive that it became stressful for her. She felt she was letting you down and turned to your mother for advice. She remembered your severe case of mumps, which likely left you sterile. Your mother and I decided that for your marriage and the Tyndall legacy, we needed Eric to father Carol's child. Initially, Carol objected, but she understood how important it was for the family to have a new Tyndall baby, including you, Joe. You wanted a family, and Eric and Carol provided what you couldn't produce. We hoped this wouldn't come to light, but with DNA tests and the differences in body types between Tyndalls and non-Tyndalls, it was bound to surface eventually. My mind was overwhelmed by a whirlwind of emotions, swirling like a tornado inside my head. I couldn't find words to comprehend this shocking discovery. Both my mother and wife enveloped me in loving, tender hugs, tears in their eyes, understanding the pain and confusion I felt. Mother whispered, my son, I'm so proud of you." Carol whispered, my husband, I love you so much." Dad spoke, "Our hope, Joe, was that you wouldn't take offense, but instead feel the love your family has for you." "Well, Edward, may I call you that now that I know you're not my father? Why would you think I wouldn't mind being shamed by my entire family?" Sam snapped. "Now you know how embarrassed I've felt, having everyone think you're my dad instead of a real man like Eric. Jeez." Everyone's gaze turned to the defiant Sam. Carol slapped him across the face and shouted, "Joe has been the best father to you. He's done everything to make you happy. I've seen 1,000 kids with worse fathers than him, but none better. You should be grateful he raised you." With sarcasm, I added, "Why did it take so long for you to show this caring concern for my feelings? Why not tell me the truth right away instead of lying all these years? I bet you had some good laughs behind my back as I boasted about what a great son I had. No wonder you nicknamed me Clueless Joe." Once again, silence engulfed the room. "We couldn't tell you, Joe. It would have been too painful for you, and we hoped no one would find out. Besides, we needed you at the plant. You're the brains and creativity behind everything. We'd be lost without you if you got upset and left. Plus, we couldn't afford to hire anyone as skilled as you." A headhunter told us the CFO and COO salaries were more than double what we paid you. This is too much for me to take in. You orchestrated my brother to father a Tyndall child with my wife, not me. You kept me working below market rate so your profits and dividends would be higher. You led me to believe I'd be in charge one day, but apparently Tyndall blood matters more than competence. I can't believe what you've dropped on me today. Next thing, you'll probably tell me my beloved wife is still with my damn brother. Here it comes, the moment of truth. Will she admit to still being with Eric? Or will she lie like she has for the past 17 years? Once again, the room fell silent. Eyes shifted between the guilty parties, yet no one denied the betrayal. Finally, a timid voice whimpered, "I'm sorry, Joe, I'm truly sorry, but you have to understand the pressure and stress I face at work. I don't love him. I despise him for who he is. But I need him to keep me sane." With that, she collapsed to the floor. Part of me wanted to comfort her, but I restrained myself. She brought this upon herself. Now she has to face the consequences. "I'm sorry about this, son, but we—" Son? Son? You hypocrite, calling me son after destroying my whole life, showing me the bare minimum of affection compared to Eric when we were kids, pushing Eric's child on me as if it were mine, laughing at my utter cluelessness and complete disrespect you had for me. I'm done with this nest of vipers. You claimed you were doing this for my sake, but you were deliberately and completely betraying me for your own selfish reasons. None of those reasons benefited me. They all shattered my heart. I feel like a helpless orphan, abandoned with no one to turn to. Each and every one of you slimy a-holes deserves a personal and heartfelt "screw you." With those words shouted so loudly that spit flew from my mouth, I turned to leave. Just as I reached the door, a large hand grabbed my arm. "I'm sorry about this, Joe. Since it matters so much to you, I'll stop sleeping with your wife. I've been with her for so long that she's all stretched out. So I'm giving her back to you." The audacity of that complete a-hole, giving my worn-out wife back to me. Once again, I turned towards the door, but this time Eric spun me around. The spinning motion gave me an advantage. I had the opportunity to punch him as I turned. I aimed for his nose and swung with all my might. Unfortunately, I missed. I didn't realize how much taller he was up close. Instead, my fist landed directly on his throat. Even though I didn't hit his nose, his dark brown eyes bulged out of their sockets. His usual sarcastic remarks turned into "ack wak" and other guttural sounds. He dropped to his knees, clutching his throat, staring but not seeing anything. This was my last chance. I stepped back and kicked him as hard as I could in the underside of his testicles. It had the desired effect. A blood-curdling scream erupted from his collapsing throat. Carol and Sam rushed to him, but with different emotions. Sam tried to console his mother's lover. Then he turned to me and yelled, "You a-hole!" Carol started kicking Eric in the back as hard as she could, screaming, "You a-hole! You deserve this!" and much more. I left the chaotic scene, got into Carol's car, and deliberately backed it into the driver's side of Eric's prized Corvette. As I sped away from the yard, I grazed the passenger side of Edward's new F-150 pickup. My emotions were overwhelming, making it hard to keep the car steady on the road. I found solace at an abandoned gas station. First, I cried until I felt drained. Then anger erupted like 4th of July fireworks. Beating the vinyl dashboard was all I could manage in my state. Finally, exhaustion set in. My limbs weak, my mind numb. Among the buzzing calls and texts on the floor, one was from Carol. With a deep sigh, I pondered my options. There was no undoing what they had done. Not only was I betrayed, but I also discovered my true parentage. What a mess I was in. Just days ago, I felt on top of the world. Now, it was all a disaster. The silver lining was knowing I had choices. Option 1 was to stay, continue as Clueless Joe, and likely get a raise, but report to Eric or Edward. Seeing them every day would only deepen my pain. Option 1 was out. Option 2 was to quietly leave town, let the Tyndall family carry on without me. But why would they care now when they didn't care before? Option 2 didn't suit me, but maybe I could merge it with Option 3. Option 3 involved staying in the family, but with a twist, to make them regret every deceitful act they had subjected me to. Yeah, door number 3 appealed to me. The only thing holding me back was being 20 miles from home. I needed to move forward. The damaged car belonging to the 403 was left in the yard, not the driveway. I packed my computer and all important documents into boxes and loaded them into my Volvo. Clothes I would need for the next few months went into my car, while other clothes and items I wanted to keep but didn't need right away were placed in Sam's 2017 Acura. Sam's dog Bullet stuck to me like glue as I made my getaway. He seemed eager to go outside. which was typical of him being a constant nuisance. I wouldn't miss cleaning up after him, feeding him, and taking him for walks. As I made my exit, Bullet left me a parting gift, a large greasy pile of poop near the house. Chuckling to myself, I scooped up the steaming mess and carried it into the master bedroom. On our marital bed lay the wedding ring quilt, lovingly made by my mother and grandmother. It featured various wedding ring patterns on most squares, with some squares stitched from clothes Carol and I wore as kids. Our names and wedding date were embroidered into the squares, a sentimental treasure trove. It seemed fitting to place the dog's gift in this special spot, with my wedding ring atop the pile. Carol would surely understand the symbolism. All the wall pictures of the 403 and Eric's son were stacked neatly on her cherry wood dining room table. After covering them with a towel for protection, I grabbed a hammer from my workshop. Driving my largest nail through the entire stack, shards of glass flew in every direction. With everything settled, I was ready to move on. There was nothing and no one keeping me tied to this place. I drove my loaded Volvo to an extended stay hotel on the other side of town. After unloading, I parked the Volvo at the airport and rented a car from Hertz. My plan was to disappear and avoid any contact with the snakes. The rental car took me to my new temporary home base. An Uber driver helped me retrieve Sam's car, which I stored in a unit. Once settled, I planned to sell it, as it was in my name due to Sam's speeding tickets making him uninsurable. I ordered pizza and beer to my hotel room, avoiding being seen. I focused on securing my personal finances, paying off and closing joint credit cards, and leaving Carol the equivalent of her last 2 paychecks. I took the rest and left Sam to ask his real father for his college fund. That night, I struggled to sleep, reminiscing about good times with my family. Realizing they didn't care about me, I decided to transform from clueless Joe to fearsome Joe. The next day, I visited Tyndall Manufacturing, knowing the office would be empty on Sunday. I parked my rental car away from the front door to avoid suspicion. I disarmed and rearmed the security alarm and headed to my office. As CFO, I had access to all financial accounts. I consolidated all funds into the main account, maxed out our line of credit, and transferred the total to our international account in the Cayman Islands. I changed the login credentials for every account, preventing access for a while. I updated the postal address. I sent closing emails for utilities and services. Tyndall Men had archived every business document traditionally, but I introduced a cloud storage program 5 years ago. Only vehicle titles and warranties were accessible to all in finance. I ensured all passwords and logins were updated, preventing unauthorized access. I also updated passwords for any CNC machines connected online. Next, I infiltrated Eric's office to extract any incriminating files from his computer. It didn't take long to find video files showing him engaged in various illicit activities with staff members, local wives, and of course, Carol. I copied these videos onto my thumb drive and left his computer intact, saving this revenge for later. My final destination was the utility room, an unusually fortified area. This concrete-walled room housed the main electricity line for Tyndall Manufacturing, crucial for powering all our machines. One wrong move with the electrical wiring could turn someone into ashes instantly. Only the electrician and I had authorization to enter this secure room. Shutting down our utility services through the electric company's bureaucracy would take a few days. In the meantime, I shut down everything from the secure room and installed new locks. By the time they realized the main transformer box was shut off, the power company would be left in the dark. Opening that heavy door would require significant effort. All the keys to rooms, cabinets, stock areas, trucks, offices, and machines were dumped into a bucket of cleaning fluid to erase their identities. Leaving the building where I grew up and hoped to spend my entire career was heartbreaking. I had dreams of becoming president with Sam as my successor, but those dreams turned into nightmares, just like so many others. During my time at Tyndall, I attended numerous industry conventions, meetings, and breakout sessions, while Eric took his buddies out drinking and to strip clubs. Now, these events became my new job hunting grounds. Ignoring the flood of texts, calls, and emails from my once loving family seemed the right choice. Their words were repetitive. We love you. We're sorry. We did what we did for you, not against you. We didn't mean to hurt you. Please sit down with us, or just with Carol, so we can explain everything. My mother pleaded for forgiveness from Edward for getting pregnant with me, asking why I couldn't do the same with Carol and Sam. The number 17 burned in my mind. Because Carol was cheating on me for 17 years. Mom's situation was just a one-night stand. On Tuesday morning, I called my lawyer, Bob Carson, to discuss my options and have him represent me. He had an opening at 3 p.m., so I gathered the necessary documents and headed back to my apartment. My strategy was leaning towards filing for divorce due to adultery, but that would require moving Carol to another state, which seemed unlikely. I made it clear to my lawyer that I didn't want to pay child support and was okay with a 50-50 split of our assets. Since I didn't own any stock in Tyndall Manufacturing, that wasn't an issue. All I had was a modest salary and income from patents. Ironically, being underpaid by Tyndall turned out to be advantageous, as I had once hoped for promotions and stock ownership. Carol, as a school principal, earned a salary close to mine, so the attorney believed the divorce proceedings should proceed smoothly unless she contested. The plan was to handle the paperwork swiftly, ideally at her school. After all, she had humiliated me for years. It was time for her to feel some shame. During my visit to the attorney's office, I disclosed the reorganization of Tyndall's finances. As CFO, I had the authority to transfer funds between accounts, though I didn't take any money for myself. The funds still belonged to Tyndall Manufacturing. They just needed to go through some steps to access them. He cautioned me against my actions. "Joe, if this rearrangement leads to any financial loss for Tyndall, they could potentially sue you and win. And what would they gain? I don't have assets for them to pursue. Besides, they wouldn't want me in court under oath explaining my reasons. No, they wouldn't want that Pandora's box opened for all to see." He sighed and requested a $3,000 retainer fee. From my list of manufacturing companies I had connections with, it didn't take long to arrange 3 meetings. These companies were interested in both my skills and access to my patents. There was no reason to remain in town. Though I had supportive friends, I didn't want to burden them. I needed to fight for a new beginning at 43 years old. A week later, Bob Carson informed me that Edward demanded my arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and grand theft. Bob explained that all funds were in a long-standing Tyndall account, and no withdrawals had been made. Edward needed to arrange a new authorized signer, which meant flying to the Cayman Islands, which he hated. A month after Carol received the divorce papers, my attorney asked if I had responded to her attempts to contact me. I laughed, having ignored all her calls, texts, emails, and letters. Carol objected to my taking Sam's college fund and car, which could delay the divorce. I offered to split the funds, but if unsatisfied, I planned to file a fraud claim, arguing I had supported Sam for 16 years, believing he was my son. This would bring Tyndall family drama to the media. A week later, Carol was ready to sign the papers, but insisted on meeting me for an hour. I had no interest in seeing her, but to resolve all legal ties, I agreed. I insisted on recording the meeting to ensure my safety. At 3 p.m. the following week, I parked my rental car in the driveway of our former home. Seeing no suspicious cars, I approached the front door. Carol promptly opened it. She didn't try to seduce me, but had 2 piles of papers to end our marriage. I declined her offer of a drink and focused on the task at hand. I didn't bother asking how she was because I no longer cared. Why should I? Instead, I said, "All right, you got me here. You can start." For the next 15 minutes, she recited from the Cheater's Bible chapter and verse. There was nothing new. I tried to tally the number of "I'm sorry" and "Can we work this out?" statements, but her words bored me. She even brought up the history of forgiveness between Edward and my mother. I responded by writing, "Once is less than 17 years, 24 times a year, totaling 408 times," in bold letters on her envelope. It wasn't that many times, Joe. "All right, show me the math then. How many times?" In a small, trembling voice, she whispered, "Too many." My face showed no anger or rage, just a complete lack of emotion. Seeing my disinterest, she attempted to engage me. "Do you want to ask me any questions?" Staring directly into her eyes, I asked, "Why?" After taking a deep breath, she began, "You know I was pressured into having a child with Eric's white fluid. Your father, sorry, Edward, really wanted to continue the Tyndall bloodline. He worried that any woman Eric might father a child with wouldn't be suitable to carry on the family name. Even while trying to conceive Sam with you, I still had intimacy with you, hoping it would be you who would father our child. I truly wanted to have your baby and build a family together forever, but I messed that up completely." The temptation to label her with the same derogatory term Edward used was strong. I decided to let her sit with her own thoughts for a while. "I don't agree with your disgusting conclusion, Carol. I've heard it too many times to find the idea of Eric's child creating a bond in our family repulsive." So continuing to be with Eric after becoming pregnant was your way of keeping us together? Was it enjoyable to secretly shame me like that? No, Joe. It wasn't about you. Bullcrap, I yelled. It had everything to do with me. I was your husband. You promised not to be with anyone else, especially not my brother. What were you thinking? How could you think it was okay to cheat on me behind my back? I'm sorry I said that wrong, Joe. I meant to say it was more about me than you. When I decided to get pregnant with Eric, I found out he wasn't as good a lover as you. He was rough and selfish. It was all about him and what he wanted, not me. I couldn't wait to get pregnant just so he would stop. He was sweaty, smelled bad, and made me feel awful every time. Once I was pregnant, I ended things with him. From then on, my focus was on you, the man I loved, who treated me well both inside and outside the bedroom. So you went back to him later because I was too good in bed. Ridiculous. This may sound awful. Yeah, this whole situation with Eric sounds awful. Hurry up and tell this sad, sad story about how you had to be with this big bad man who didn't satisfy you. Please, Joe, I only have an hour left of my life with you to explain. I still love you, but I know I've ruined my chance with you. I just want to convince you that what I did had nothing to do with our relationship. You were amazing to me, the best husband any woman could have. But I have a flaw. I've been very successful in my life, and sometimes I let it get to my head. I start thinking I'm better, smarter, and more important than others. I lose my empathy and act like an arrogant person. And I know you've seen that side of me. I needed a man who would treat me poorly, and Eric fit that description. Joe, this flaw became apparent after your mother and father convinced me to get pregnant by Eric instead of you. You mean when you were used like a farm animal? I suppose it was somewhat like that, as there were no expressions of love. We undressed, had closeness, and I left. No cuddling, kissing on the lips wasn't permitted. I found that I enjoyed rough act. Sometimes it was twice a month, sometimes there was a 3-month gap. It didn't matter to Eric how often I came to his house. To sum it up, Joe, I turned to Eric because I needed to be humbled and knocked off my high horse. It wasn't because you were lacking as a lover, but I had an uncontrollable need for rough act. Also, I felt ashamed to ask you to treat me the way Eric did. You've always been tender and loving, treating me like royalty. I used him instead of seeking therapy to deal with my superiority complex. Looking back, I see I made a huge mistake, and I'm deeply sorry for hurting the best man I've ever known. Someday, when this is all in the past, I hope you'll remember the times we were happy together. That's quite a stretch of a story. At least now I think I know all the details, or do I? Quietly, she replied. Yes, you know everything now. Do I? Let's find out what I don't know. When was the last time you slept? The last time I was with him was when I was kicking his kidneys after the terrible time at your parents' house. Do you do him BJ every time? She nodded in response. And you swallowed all of it? Another nod. So when I came home from work and kissed you, there was still his fluid in your mouth? Absolutely not. I brushed my teeth at his place, used breath mints on the way home, and brushed again once I got home. I guess he didn't use a protection? She shook her head no. Did you ever worry about getting an STD from Eric? She just shrugged in response. Did we ever have closeness on the same day you were with Eric? She turned pale at this question. I always douched there and again at home. That didn't answer my question. How many times, Carol? Not many, Joe, but there were times when you really wanted to make love, and I didn't want to turn you away. Those days, I'd suggest BJ instead of you going down on me. Now that you've avoided the question, let's get to the real truth. Did I ever go down on you after you had closeness with Eric? I didn't keep track of that. I didn't want to hurt you, but there might have been a few times over the years when that happened. I can't give you a number, but it probably did happen. The lasagna I ate at Mama Anna's Ristorante churned in my stomach like the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Suddenly, my previous meal erupted across the table, drenching Carol and everything around her. Leaving a trail of half-digested meat and pasta, I staggered towards the door. Carol's sobbing pierced my ears, but I didn't care. She probably didn't appreciate vomit on her carpet or dress, but oh well. My lawyer had to reprint the court documents since no one at the courthouse would touch the soiled ones. 2 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. I kept half of Sam's college fund and the car money. Carol got the house until Sam finished high school, which I'm sure annoyed him. But since he wanted me out of his life, I left with my money. I refused to pay child support since I wasn't Sam's father. If needed, I was ready to file for adultery, and sue the Tyndalls for fraud. No one wanted that kind of scandal. I was already embarrassed to be associated with them. During my self-imposed isolation, I debated whether to watch the video files I'd taken from Eric's office. I still couldn't get over Carol's affair, let alone watch two people I despised having closeness. Each file had a name, and my heart sank when I saw Sindra on one, a relatively small file. Sindra was the wife of one of my best friends, John Brown. John was a senior when I was a sophomore in high school, and despite our different social circles, he was a popular athlete, and I was more of a bookworm. I ended up tutoring him in English. He was great at science and math, but struggled with English. Over the semester, we became friends. After he graduated college on a football scholarship, he returned to our town to be near his parents. He asked me for a job recommendation, and I helped him get hired at our shop, where he excelled in math and engineering. A couple of years ago, John and Sindra went through a rough patch in their relationship. Sindra had a difficult night out with friends and ended up having regrettable closeness with someone else. She confessed to John right away, but the incident strained their marriage. They had 2 young sons, and a divorce would have been devastating. The video labeled Sindra was the shortest one. It showed her stumbling into a hotel room where a cell phone camera was set up on a dresser. She appeared disoriented and stared blankly at the bed. Eric entered and undressed her without saying a word. Initially, I thought the video had no sound, but there was simply no conversation. Eric showed no affection as he pushed her onto the bed. She grunted and appeared dazed throughout the encounter. Then Eric did something shocking that startled me. Afterward, he casually grabbed a drink and lit a cigarette. Sindra eventually gathered herself, dressed, and quietly left the room. Not a word was exchanged between them during this whole scene. John always wanted to find out what happened, and now I have some proof in case he decides to seek revenge. I invited John over to my place to talk about something really private. After a couple of beers, he asked about the secret discussion. "John, I came across a video of your wife with another guy," I said. "It looks like she was either drugged, drunk, or both. I can tell you who it was, show you the video, or both. Whatever hurts you the least." It took him a while to gather himself. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he took deep breaths. I put my hand on his shoulder but stayed quiet. "Who?" he finally asked. "Your brother, Eric. But she hates him. Thinks he's a real jerk. Why would she sleep with Eric?" "Like I said, John, she seemed out of it. I'll show you the video to prove she didn't initiate it." After watching the video, he learned the identity of the man who had slept with her after a girls' night out years ago. She didn't know his name or why they had closeness. She sobbed uncontrollably while explaining everything to John. Trying to stay calm, he asked, "Why would he do this to an employee's wife? She said it was a one-time thing and he never contacted her again." "My guess, John, is that he didn't even know her last name. He just drugged the most attractive woman he could find and took advantage. He didn't care about her name, just her body." As he stood up, John thanked me. "This helps a lot. I forgave her back then because she was so upset and sorry. Now I know the truth, but I'm not sure if I'll tell Sindra. I'll figure it out as I go. Can I keep this video, Joe?" "Sure, it's the only copy," I replied. "Would you mind if, something happened to Eric in the next few months?" "Go ahead," I said. "It might even help me, since I already punched him once. Just let me know when it happens so I can have my alibis ready." "Thanks, Joe. You're like a brother to me." "Yeah. And you're a better brother than the one I got assigned," I joked. We hugged, and as he left, he said, "Keep in touch." I didn't bother spending much time reviewing the videos of Carol and Eric. It wasn't worth the effort. It just messed with my head. When the time came, I decided to delete all the videos with Carol's name on them. I never wanted to see those two again. But fate had other plans. I accidentally hit play instead of delete. What I saw was more disgusting than I could have imagined. Carol was on her knees, looking euphoric facing the camera. She hadn't lied when she said her husband, family, friends, and everything else vanished from her mind when she was with Eric. It was clear she was thoroughly enjoying it. Eric was aggressively having closeness with her, holding a dog leash around her neck with one hand and gripping her hair with the other, pulling her head up to the camera. Between gasps, he ordered her to bark like a dog. And of course she did. Seeing the woman I once loved degrade herself like this was devastating. This scene shattered every good memory I had of her. 2 weeks later, John came over for a beer to thank me. I had answered some painful questions that had been haunting him for years. He also thanked me for proving that Sindra had been raped, not having an affair. He had a plan to use the remaining recordings to expose cheating wives and help husbands who had been hurt by Eric's actions. I gladly gave him the rest of those vile videos. My job search was finally paying off. One of Tyndall's main competitors reached out and asked me to come for an interview in their city, 100 miles away. This was the first bit of happiness I had felt in a long time. I made myself available for the interview anytime they wanted to meet. The Donen Corporation was led by CEO and President Tim Donen. My meeting with Tim, he preferred not to be called Mr. Donen, went really well, and I was offered a great job package similar to what my colleagues had. There was one condition. I had to undergo a personality evaluation with the head of Reynolds Resources. After everything I'd been through in recent months, I worried about what they might find out about me. The person I was scheduled to meet the next morning at 10 was Mickey D. Reynolds, the owner. Reynolds Resources handled not only personality assessments, but also HR tasks, employee recruitment, corporate governance, and reporting for Donen Manufacturing. Tim mentioned this relieved him greatly, as he was more into engineering projects than administrative work. Their office was sleek and modern, a contrast from Donen's basic manufacturing setup. After giving my name to the attractive receptionist, I was offered coffee and a seat on the couch until Mickey D could see me. Once again, it's Mickey D, not Mr. Reynolds. To my surprise, Mickey D turned out to be Mickey D, a very attractive woman, probably in her early 30s. She didn't seem taken aback by my slight awkwardness as we shook hands. Her grip was firm yet feminine, which I liked. Over the next couple of hours, we talked about my skills, preferences, and engineering philosophy. Our conversation was polite and enjoyable. She delicately approached the topic of why I was leaving my long-held job at Tyndall. While she couldn't ask personal questions, she left it open for me to share anything I wanted. All I mentioned was that I had been passed over for a promotion to president and felt underpaid for my responsibilities. "Oh, wow, Joe, it's already 11:45, and I'm sure you're ready for lunch. I'll send my report to Tim, and he'll be in touch with more details." "Would it break any rules if I offered to take you to lunch? You know, like showing the new guy around town, Chamber of Commerce style?" She grinned slyly and replied, "I'd be happy to." And so began a series of lunches that evolved into dinners and more over the next few months. I took my time entering into a relationship, but I enjoyed spending time with her immensely. It seemed from her responses that she was content with the pace and the growth of our friendship. Meanwhile, Tyndall Manufacturing faced financial struggles. Despite having cash on hand to cover expenses, the funds were somehow unavailable. Edward had to act swiftly to meet obligations to vendors and suppliers. To keep the company afloat, he had to tap into emergency reserves. The 160 acres of valuable land near town, owned by the Tyndall family for over a century, was worth millions. However, the idea of mortgaging this property unsettled the conservative Tyndall family members. Taking out a mortgage helped keep the company operational until Edward traveled to the Cayman Islands to regain control of the funds. However, the damage to the company's reputation was significant. Suppliers, no longer willing to extend credit terms, demanded upfront cash payments. This severely strained their working capital, and the mortgage remained unpaid as the Cayman funds were repatriated. Over time, I gradually shared the details of the upheaval in my personal and professional life with Mickey D. She was empathetic, having experienced her own personal tragedy when her husband, the founder and guiding force behind Reynolds Resources, was ended in an accident involving a UPS truck 2 years earlier. She had bravely kept the business together after his death. Meanwhile, John informed me that someone had attacked Eric in a dimly lit bar parking lot. Eric took multiple hits from a steel pipe and pleaded for mercy as he lay on the ground. In desperation, he reached up with his right hand. The attacker seized Eric's middle finger and violently bent it backward until bones snapped. After a scream of agony, Eric lost consciousness, missing the assailant's warning, "That's for messing with my wife." My position at Donen brought a lot of joy into my life. I settled in quickly, and since there was no non-compete clause from Tyndall, I began to attract their best customers. They knew I had left Tyndall and were pleased to get my contact details. I wasn't as smooth a salesman as Eric, but I understood their needs and how to deliver products better, faster, and cheaper than Tyndall. Eric only cared that customers paid for our products. He wasn't out visiting customers much. It seemed he kept getting into trouble, often after leaving a bar. 6 months later, after finalizing the divorce, my relationship with Mickey D was thriving. Besides being beautiful, loving, smart, and caring, she was enjoyable to be around. After numerous dates and growing closer, our evenings became more intimate. Not rough, but filled with touching, caressing, and kissing. One evening, it became clear to me that Mickey was open to the idea of being with me intimately. As we danced closely, She sensed my desire for her. While her leg rubbed against mine, she looked up with those gorgeous eyes and asked, "Should we leave now?" "Absolutely," I replied, kissing her with more passion than before. We couldn't keep our hands off each other on the way home. It was almost reckless. But when the endorphins are flowing, how can you resist? There wasn't a rush to tear off buttons or rip shirts as we slowly undressed each other in her bedroom. Our hands explored new places, our breathing and heart rates increased, and then, "Did you bring protection?" she whispered in my ear. "No, I'm sterile. That's why Carol had Eric's baby." "What did the doctor tell you about being sterile?" "No doctor. My mom told me I had mumps as a kid, so I couldn't get Carol pregnant." "No doctor? The same mom who lied to you about your father and encouraged your wife to sleep with your brother? If I were you, I wouldn't trust anything she said and would get a doctor's opinion. Now I'm ready. You have 3 choices, honey. Use your mouth, your hands, or your feet." "Feet?" "Yeah, feet, as in walking out of my apartment. You have 5 seconds to decide." After we had used up all our energy, we talked about my fertility. I agreed to visit a specialist to get my material tested. It would take about a week for my body to replenish what I released this weekend. At the doctor's office, the experience was embarrassing. I had to come back in a week for the results. Since Mickey was interested in this topic, I invited her to join me at the next doctor's appointment. The doctor quickly informed us that I wasn't infertile. It totaled only 25 million, while the average is between 50 and 100 million. Their mobility was average too. The doctor suggested that unless we were in a rush to have a baby, we shouldn't worry about pregnancy. Taking some vitamins and cutting down on drinking might help a bit. He recommended not stressing too much about getting pregnant. It's like playing roulette. With fewer amount, the chances are lower, but not impossible. Mickey D went back on birth control while I used protection for a couple of months. We thought it was time to move in together. Since Christmas was approaching, we decided to wait until after the new year. But first, she wanted me to meet her parents. She had already told them she was dating a great guy, her words, and they wanted to meet him at their house. This could be the start of having a real family again. I felt a bit nervous as we pulled up to their large but modest house. Just as the door opened, Mickey D stepped forward and hugged the man in gray slacks and a red Christmas sweater. She turned slightly and said, "Daddy, I want you to meet the man I love, Joe Tyndall. Joe, meet my father." I interrupted her, saying, "Mr. Donen, oops, Tim, I didn't realize she was your daughter. Wow, I'm not sure what to say." "Say, nice to see you, Tim, and come inside." "Why didn't you tell me Tim was your dad? Wouldn't that be something I should know?" "Yes, Joe, that's why we kept it quiet. I needed to see if you liked me for me, not for any inheritance. And I didn't want you facing gossip from employees about dating the boss's daughter and heir to the company." Like me, she had a younger brother who passed away at 16. "So, what does being invited to Christmas dinner with your parents mean for us? Is this personal, business, or how does it affect our relationship?" "Joe, it means I love you and want you to meet my family. Business is separate. Since you said you have no family, I want you to spend Christmas with mine. Now that you know about Mickey D, the D stands for Donen. I really am clueless, aren't I?" She giggled, saying, "Maybe you need a D in your name for duh." We all laughed at that. With everything out in the open, we had a fantastic afternoon and evening. I really enjoyed being with Tim and Mickey's mom, Barbara. I may not always catch on quickly, but I had a feeling that asking for Mickey's hand in marriage would be well received by her parents. I'm pretty sure Mickey would say yes, but given my recent experiences, I didn't want to assume anything. My gut feeling was right. When I got down on one knee with a blue velvet box in hand, Mickey practically tackled me with a yes. Amid her kisses, she managed to say, "Yes, yes, yes," before stealing my breath away with her enthusiasm. 3 months later, we had a small wedding ceremony. On my side of the church, there were only John and Sindra, along with some new friends I had recently made. After a honeymoon in the Caribbean, we returned to my apartment to begin our life together. Our first priority was for Mickey to stop taking her birth control pills. We knew it might take some time to fertilize her eggs, so we were excited to start trying. We visited the county courthouse to legally change our names. Mickey D. Reynolds reverted to her maiden name, Mickey Donen. Society's more accepting views on gender identity, marital status, and personal names allowed me to change my name to Joseph Timothy Donen. When I asked Tim for his blessing, he was deeply moved and said with tears in his eyes, "Thank you, son." My friend John found a file of Carol having closeness with Eric and had the desire to avenge. John's son Tyler was the same age as the boys in Carol's school and played sports with them. Tyler provided John the text addresses of a number of junior and senior boys. Using a new address, John sent a copy of Carol and Eric video to each of these guys. A week later, Carol walked down the hallway between classes when she heard sharp barking. Finding it odd, she turned towards the sound and saw a small group of senior boys smirking at her. Initially, she thought a button might be undone on her blouse, or her skirt might have ridden up her thigh. When she turned away, she heard bark, bark, bark from another group of boys. Remembering the school's bulldog mascot, she thought it might be a team-building activity for the upcoming game on Friday night. The barking stopped as soon as she entered the office. For the next 2 hours, she didn't hear any more barking. But when she stepped out of the office, it started again. From one end of the hall to the other, it sounded like she had walked into a dog kennel at feeding time. There were occasional howls, but mostly it was bark, bark, bark echoing wherever she went. None of the other staff members seemed to be experiencing this. The next morning, as soon as she stepped onto the concrete parking lot, it sounded like the starting line of the Alaskan Iditarod dog sled race. All eyes were now on her, as though she had 50 surround sound speakers turned up to full blast. Hurrying into the building, she focused on the concrete ahead, not the boys imitating dogs. She breathed a sigh of relief as the door closed behind her. Walking towards her office, she heard a single male voice say, "Bark like a dog." The deep voice sounded like Eric's, but why was he here? What could possibly be his reason for saying that? It hit her like a ton of bricks, realizing what had happened. The boys had somehow gotten hold of one of the videos where Eric had subjected her to humiliating acts. She skipped over how the video got out and went straight to worrying about the consequences. Her job, her career, her dignity, all of it at risk of being torn apart. She hurried into her office and slammed the door shut, wondering if her staff members were smirking because they knew. Who else had seen the video? What should she do now? Midway through the first school class hour, when the halls were empty, she dashed out of her office, shouting over her shoulder that she felt sick and was going home. It wasn't a lie. She genuinely felt sick. Instead of heading home, though, she sped down the street to Tyndall Manufacturing. Bursting into Eric's office, she snarled, "Did you distribute videos of us having closeness? If you did, I swear I'll end you." Eric could sense her rage. He quickly stuttered, "No, I have them all right here. I'm the only one with access." He patted his computer and pulled up the file. "You idiot. You've been hacked. They've gone viral and my life is ruined. Could things get any worse?" Sobbing and moaning, she collapsed to the floor. Not knowing what else to do, Eric rushed to his father's office, and together they hurried back to Carol, who was still in distress. The two decided to take her home, close the door, and get back to work. 5 years later, Carol had to step down from her principal position because she had lost the respect of her staff, students, and the school board. A new job was created for her, leveraging her expertise. She worked in an unfinished basement office, reviewing new state and national procedures and guidelines. She had minimal face-to-face interaction with coworkers and none with students. With greasy, unwashed hair and wearing flannel pajama bottoms paired with fluffy slippers, she arrived at the building at 6 a.m. and left an hour before school ended. Her notoriety left her isolated socially, forcing her to travel out of town for groceries. Sam, her son, often got into fights, provoked by classmates calling his mother Lassie the Wonder Dog. Initially, several men showed interest in her, sending dog biscuits with their phone numbers, hoping for a response. After I left, Tidal Manufacturing's financial situation plummeted drastically. They lost customers to Donen Manufacturing, faced increased CFO and COO expenses, and suffered from poor management by Eric, which doomed the company's economic stability. To settle debts, Edward had to sell the family's 160-acre farm, a legacy for mid-priced housing development, taking advantage of the scenic landscape. A business broker found a buyer for the company, marking the end of the family business. Edward and Sally moved into a small apartment, a significant expense from their Social Security checks. When they passed away, the only reminder of the Tyndall family in town would be their tombstones. Eric and Sam left town for new careers, Eric as a used car salesman and Sam flipping burgers. On July 1st, the new company owner called an all-employee meeting to introduce the new president. Edward and Eric were notably absent. The new shop foreman, John Brown, captured the crowd's attention and announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, meet our new president, Mr. Joe Donen." The staff was relieved to learn they were acquired by a competitor rather than a large conglomerate that might liquidate assets and lay off everyone. The biggest surprise came when I emerged from the office. People murmured and stared, recognizing me but not by this name. Hey everyone! It feels good to be back here. Did you miss me? The crowd responded with a loud roar. I guess Eric didn't think he was as great a president as he thought he was. After reassuring all the Donen manufacturing employees about the expected growth and utilization from the former Tyndall manufacturing, the employees started chanting Donen, Donen, Donen. Of course, from now on, the name on the building and your paychecks will be Donen Manufacturing. More cheers followed. Thank you for the warm welcome. I'm confident this will be a positive change for all of us. Now, let me introduce you to my family. My wife, Mickey D., and our son, Timothy Joseph Donen. Yes, DNA confirmed he is my son. He is my